When the U.S. Secretary of War gives his daily briefing and begins to describe how combat operations are going against Iran, he overwhelmingly focuses on the what.
I stand before you today with one unmistakable message about Operation Epic Fury. America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy.
What Pete Hegseth spends far less time on, though, is the why. At Wednesday's briefing, there was one very specific question he was asked about this, and I'll just play you the whole thing.
Thank you for taking my question. Heather Mullins, Lindell TV. One of the questions I have is just really regarding the intelligence that indicated that this was something the U.S. had to get involved with at the time that you guys did. We had Operation Midnight Hammer back in June. We obliterated their nuclear facilities. What was the intelligence that suggested that somehow they became a threat once again that required us to get involved with Operation Epic Fury?
I appreciate the question.
Now, in a moment, I'll play you his answer. But the thing to understand about the question is what it's driving at, which is a divide that splinters even Republicans.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I have found the explanations lacking.
This happened because Israel wanted it to happen. This is Israel's war.
Republican Rep. Thomas Massie calls the U.S. strikes acts of war unauthorized by Congress, and Republican Senator Rand Paul said on X, "I must oppose another presidential war."
What's the imminent threat from the Iranian regime?
Iran's retaliation has put Americans in the Middle East in danger. 6 members of the U.S. military have been killed as of the moment I record this. So the why question is important. And as I'll try to show you, the U.S. government has provided no single convincing answer. It would be completely understandable to think the assassination of Iran's supreme leader made this war about regime change, because direct to the Iranian people, Trump said as much.
To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
This was followed, however, almost immediately by Pete Hegseth saying this was not
a so-called regime change war. But the regime sure did change.
So was regime change the reason for war? Unclear. There was also that period of protest and uprising in Iran, followed by a brutal crackdown.
These are the most widespread protests Iran has seen in years, driven by anger toward the regime and worsening economic conditions.
Trump's rationale in arming for war back then, in January, was a question of human rights.
I tell the Iranian leaders, you better not start shooting because we'll start shooting too.
Airstrikes would be one of the many, many options that are on the table for the commander-in-chief.
Started off focused on Iranian massive human rights violations at home, killing thousands upon thousands of protesters. And President Trump saying help is on the way. That help didn't seem to be on the way.
But then there's yet another stated reason for war on Iran. Remember the summer of 2025, Operation Midnight Hammer.
In a major development involving the U.S., Donald Trump says the U.S. has carried out a successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Obliterated. But then, 8 months later, here we are, Operation Epic Fury, and now the obliterated nuclear threat is apparently back. So here's that question again that I played for you at the start.
What was the intelligence that suggested that somehow they became a threat once again that required us to get involved with Operation Epic Fury?
I appreciate the question. The evidence in front of us since the 12-day war was that Iran had no intention of actually negotiating a nuclear deal that truly meant they did not have a pathway to the nuclear bomb. And they had a moment. Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, 2 of the best negotiators in the world, poured into that negotiation, giving them every single possible opportunity to release that ambition, and they didn't.
Which, of course, only half-heartedly answers the why now question, because Iran has spent literally decades refusing to release their nuclear ambitions. And so we've come full circle around the rift among Republicans trying to decipher the reason for going to war.
So is this about bombing them out of their ambition? Is that why 4 service members are dead and their families are grieving them today because Iran had ambitions? That can't be it.
And the Trump administration presumably knows that can't be it. A series of Reuters reports suggest claims of an imminent ballistic missile threat from Iran that could target the United States were exaggerated, and that it wasn't Iran itself that forced the U.S.'s hand.
There's no imminent threat from Iranian ballistic missiles. Well, there's no doubt in a decade and a half, they may have such a missile. They don't have one now.
So what then explains the why and the why now of war against Iran? So Pete Hegseth is at the podium, and he's giving an accounting of America's successes in Iran. And then he says,
Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed.
Which does feel like important information, but he goes on.
Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh.
Now, this is a little different because the question I had at this point was, is this personal turned policy? Because it made me remember something Donald Trump had said to ABC News just a few days before. I got him before he got me. They tried twice, well, I got him first. So he was referring to 2 things there. The him in I got him is Iran's Ayatollah, Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader whom U.S. intelligence and Israeli fighter jets assassinated over the weekend as part of its current war on Iran. They tried twice is a reference to a pair of Iranian plots believed to have targeted Trump in 2024 while he was running for president. He survived those plots, obviously. To my knowledge, though, this is the first and then the second time anyone in Trump's orbit has acknowledged a possible personal dimension to the attack on Iran. Revenge. For Iran plotting revenge on Trump, who during his first term as president oversaw the assassination of an Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani.
General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb, very proudly he thought, but I terminated him in my first term.
So was this personal, or if not, did it at least in some way color Trump's thinking? Hegseth was very quick to deny that any of this mattered in deciding when and how to strike Iran, with one small footnote.
And while that was not the focus of the effort by any stretch of the imagination, in fact, never raised by the president or anybody else, I ensured and others ensured that those who were responsible for that were eventually part of the target list. It wasn't the beginning of the effort. We were focused on missiles and launchers, and that's the focus. But ultimately, if we had the opportunity to get at those who are trying to get at Americans specifically, we would. And so we eventually had the opportunity to do that from the air.
The other member of Trump's inner circle who may have inadvertently given ulterior reasons for going to war is Marco Rubio, Secretary of State.
I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way.
This week, he was speaking to reporters, and on the question of why wage war, why put American lives at risk now, he seems to say very clearly that it wasn't exactly the U.S. in the driver's seat. It was Israel who forced the president's hand by planning its own attack against Iran, which would have risked leaving the United States open to counterattack.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
This admission created 2 problems. First, outrage from those parts of the MAGA movement who see foreign wars as pure poison.
But how did this tiny country with no resources and 9 million people convince the world's great superpower with the greatest military in history to do its bidding?
Look, I love the president. I love largely the decisions he's made, but I love him enough to also tell him when he's going down the wrong path.
But the second problem was that it seemed to force Rubio and Trump into disagreement. Trump would tell reporters, Iran was the one plotting an attack. And Israel didn't tell me what to do. I told them what to do.
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that.
Except again, this is a contradiction, because the reporting that's come out suggests Operation Epic Fury took place despite U.S. intelligence, that there was no immediate threat, even within the next decade. I've yet to see this discrepancy explained in a way that's backed up by any evidence at all.
The administration clearly seems to be trying out reasons for starting this conflict. They obviously know that they have to sell it to the American people, and I think they're trying to see what sticks.
The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do.
I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality.
So look, it's hard to report the reality because there's no single coherent message to report. There are many messages at odds with each other, even the pronouncements that seem clear.
As I said Monday, the mission is laser focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them, annihilate its navy and critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to nuclear weapons.
That's extremely vague. Again, it sounds clear, but the goals and benchmarks provided aren't actually quantifiable.
Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb, not on our watch, not ever.
Now, in fairness, it's what Hegseth says just at the end of this next clip I'll play you that I think might best explain the why and the why now.
Unlike the past, where vague red lines and endless negotiations let Iran fund terror and inch ever so slightly toward a bomb, this president sees the threat plainly and acts decisively. No more half measures, especially when Iran is at its weakest.
Those last 7 words, especially when Iran is at its weakest.
There is a window of opportunity right now because Iran has not been able to rebuild all of its air defense systems since the 12-day war in June. If we were going to have to deal with Iran, better to do it now when they're on their back heel than try and deal with it later.
Economically, Iran's a mess. Inflation's hovered at 40%, the value of its currency plunging. Like, if you try to Google the conversion rate from Iranian rial to USD, you literally get 1 rial equals 0 American dollars because the decimal is too small for Google to bother expressing it. The country's biggest commodities, oil and gas, are restricted on world markets, sanctioned by the US. From a defense standpoint, think about how the ground has fallen out from under Iran in the wake of Israel's multi-year war in Gaza, because that wasn't simply a war on Hamas. It was also a war on Hezbollah in Lebanon and on Houthis in Yemen, all critical proxies through which Iran has historically projected power. And so imagine you're the Trump administration in 2026. You see in Iran a regime that is brutally dictatorial, working towards a nuclear bomb, posing an active and ongoing threat to allies in the Middle East, run by a regime who came to power chanting death to America. And through a years-long campaign, they are today, in many ways, on their knees.
I would separate the what from the when a little bit. The what is they've been killing Americans for 47 years. They have thousands of missiles pointed at us. They have ongoing nuclear ambitions, and they're at the weakest they've ever been.
So the calculation with this justification is simply that America is going to war because there's never been a better time than now to go to war. I'll let you decide which explanation makes the most sense. But what I think is probably true is what I said at the start, that there is no single convincing reason that explains all of what we've seen. It is a very complex web of reasons, some pragmatic, some political, but some maybe very personal for the president.